The views expressed, opinions given, and any communication made between the hosts and guests of What Are You Afraid of Horror and Paranormal Show do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Para-X Radio, EMC Network, or all services that play this show. The hosts and services are not responsible for the actions of their guests, and the original rights of all intellectual property is retained by the creator, and all work is used with either permission or Creative Commons license. The show is for entertainment purposes only.
Halloween is coming. Halloween.
Well, Phil, summer's over.
It's pretty much done.
Yeah. And we're moving into October.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there. September's coming, and, we're heading towards that all spooky month.
That spooky month. You know, I'm getting pretty excited for it.
I am too.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know what it is, but, I know when we're recording this now, it's August, but when this plays, it'll be September, closer to the...
And I was messaging you yesterday, and I was driving by, and I saw the Spirit of Halloween store. Halloween. And I was like, wow, I think I said to you, they're starting early this year, and I actually, pulled over and I went in.
Yeah, you went in.
It was fully stocked. It wasn't like they were in the process of, stocking the shelves. I mean, it was completely done.
How exciting.
Yeah. And this is August, so...
Right. Right.
I was pretty amazed by that. But I had a good time walking around and seeing all the cool things.
I think my wife would have a fit if I started buying Halloween decorations.
Yeah, and you know what? I was trying to hold myself back because there was a few things I saw that I was like almost tempted to pick up and walk to the checkout with, and I was like, no, I can't do that yet. So,
yeah, I know. But the one thing she will not be upset about is my baking.
Oh, she won't have a problem with that.
She made some requests last night. Pumpkin scones.
Yeah.
Pumpkin cookies. Pumpkin chocolate chip muffins. Things like that. And lots of my apple things, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm doing a peach cobbler tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah. But this is episode 96, and we're continuing with our psychic season.
I want to get into some baking this season.
Oh, come on over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do some stuff. Yeah,
come on over and bake with me.
I will.
Like I said, psychic season. It was psychic spring.
It was psychic.
And then it became psychic summer.
Yep.
And now it's sort of psychic fall, so we'll call it psychic season. Because psychic spring eternal.
Oh, yeah.
We've had quite a few good people on here.
Oh, we absolutely have.
And tonight is no different. This is episode 96, Growing Up Psychic. And we have a great guest tonight. Michael was young when he discovered his psychic abilities. He spent his childhood studying with established psychics and going to psychic camp, somewhat reluctantly, to gain a greater understanding of his gifts. Through the loving support of his mother, May, he was able to mature in his practice while staying true to his own creative style.
Michael has been a professional psychic for more than 35 years, giving readings, performing ghost busting, and speaking at events and conventions. His clients range from celebrities like Melanie Griffith and Gary Busey to financiers and dog walkers.
His book, Growing Up Psychic, From Skeptic to Believer, chronicles his life and path of coming to terms with his gifts. He is currently working on a second book and writes a weekly column for True Magazine. Now, the Growing Up Psychic book, From Skeptic to Believer, it's a gripping memoir that's chronicling the hair-raising and hilarious moments in Michael's haunted life. It includes amazing true stories, a dangerous ghost trend with a hidden agenda, the hodgepodge of psychics who gathered in his mother's kitchen, ghost hunting misadventures, spirit messages, possession, well, Oh my. Along with an inspiring account of a successful battle against chemical dependency as he learned to accept his unusual gift. How are you this evening, Michael? Thank you for joining us.
I'm great. God, listening to all that just makes me crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it seems kind of normal to me, all that stuff. But I grew up with psychics, that's for sure. I didn't. I grew up in a really normal house. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and we never really believed in any of this stuff until we started having these weird experiences, and then we kind of had to learn about it.
So you have a strong psychic connection in your family. Your sister, Echo Bodine, is an established psychic and ghost hunter also. You defined your ability at age 7 and had other family members who were psychic also. What was growing up like for you, and how was it different from other families?
Well, the first 5 years were great. They were pretty normal. We had a pretty normal family, and then, God, like you said, I was around 6 or 7, and we were all eating dinner. We were all sitting around the dinner table, and except for my brother who was downstairs, he was learning how to play the drums, and he sucked, and it sounded terrible. But he was like one of those serious teenager kind of guys, and so he was really into it, and he was trying. So we were all upstairs eating, and it sounds terrible, and then all of a sudden it sounded kind of good, like it got tighter, and it sounded almost like he put on one of those records, How to Play the Drums by, and that lasted for maybe 5 minutes, and then we heard the drums get knocked over, and we heard the door blamming open, and he came flying upstairs, and you have to understand my brother. My brother was like I said, a very serious. He was like 14, very serious teenager, too cool to fool. Just the babes loved him. Just was that kind of guy, and so for him to show fear, I'd never seen it. And my father was like a big guy, 6'6", big guy. And it wasn't encouraged to show fear in males in my family. In fact, it was considered really bad. So it was weird for me when I saw my brother come upstairs and he was scared to death. And we were all kind of like, what was that? And my dad was like, okay, what the hell's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And he wouldn't talk about it at first. And finally, my mom got him to tell us what was going on. And he said that he was downstairs playing the drums, and he saw this spirit come through the wall and park himself right in front of his drums when he was playing. And he said he got so freaked out, he just put his head down and started playing really tight or playing really fast. And he'd look up and see this thing, and he'd ask it to leave. And finally this thing just kind of acknowledged him and said, okay, and went through the wall. And that's when he threw down the sticks and came flying upstairs. And when he told us all that, I remember thinking, whatever, because I don't think any of us really believed in ghosts or anything like that. But there was this really weird feeling in the air, like something was weird. And then about a week later, we were all sitting around eating dinner again, and this time with my brother, because he wouldn't go downstairs without like a priest. And we have this Lazy Susan and the salt shaker. We're talking, just like you're having normal dinner talk. And the salt shaker gets up and slowly moves across the table and dropped between my mother and my father. Huh. And it was so weird. I think it would have been better if they had organ music playing in the background, because it just didn't seem real. It seemed like, are we really watching this? Because we all stopped talking, and I thought my brother had hooked up some sort of pulley system, with wires invisible something. But when it hit the ground, we all just went, whoa! And my brother starts yelling, see, I told you there's a place that's got haunted ghosts. I told you. And my dad was pissed off right away, like, how the hell did you do that? What the hell? He starts yelling at him about doing whatever he's doing. But again, there was that really weird feeling in the air, like something was kind of weird. And then things just started naturally happening. Like, you'd walk into a room, the lights would go on and off, and you'd think, well, maybe somebody else was doing it, or maybe, who knows, a short or bulb or something. Or you'd open up a cupboard and the food would slide out in your hand. And you think, well, that's kind of odd. Well, maybe it was just the vibrations of people or whatever. Things kept happening. People would walk up to you and tap you on the shoulder. You'd turn around, nobody was there. And it wasn't always at night, and it wasn't always when you were alone. Sometimes it happened during the day. You get your hair pulled. You'd go, what? You turn on, nothing was there. You'd hear these voices. You'd hear people laughing. it was always at sporadic little times. And it was enough to where my mom was getting kind of freaked out because she was a stay-at-home mom and she was around this stuff all the time. And so she decided to go to talk to somebody. And so she went and talked to our minister. We went to church and stuff. And this minister said, well, I'm thinking you might have some female issues there. So I think you should go to a gynecologist. So she goes to the gynecologist. The gynecologist tells her that she might be a little off her rocker. Mm-hmm. So he sends her to it. Anyway, she went to all these different people, and she ended up going to this psychologist lady that worked out of her car. and this lady told her that, hey, I don't think there's anything wrong with you, but it might be that you have some spirit issues. And I know I live in Minneapolis, and this lady she told her that this lady's name, Mrs. Olson, lived in St. Paul, and that she should give her a call. The mother was raised Catholic, and so she wasn't really keen on the whole idea of dealing with like psychics and all that kind of stuff. She just thought, yeah, whatever. But she felt better about it because she didn't feel so crazy, and she didn't have to go get a pap smear. And she went home and she went upstairs to her bedroom. And I guess my mom used to collect Bibles, which I didn't know at the time, but she used to collect Bibles, and they were all stacked up on her bed in kind of this weird little way. And it freaked her out. She just thought, oh boy. And so I remember getting yelled at when I came home from school about not screwing around with the Bibles, which I didn't. But she said, don't do that with all the stuff going on in the house right now. Just don't do that. And she yelled at all of us when we all got back from school. Right. And she made dinner, and she went back upstairs, and we heard her yell, and we all went up there, and the Bibles were all stacked up on her bed again. I think that was the tipping point for her, where she just said, if they're screwing with Bibles, I got to do something. So she called up this Mrs. Olson, and Mrs. Olson told her about what was going on and all the stuff and why and what was going to happen with our family, and she wanted her to come in. And so her and my sister Echo, they went in for a reading, and that's when everything changed. That's when everything happened. My mother loved this stuff. She really grabbed onto it. It was it was in the 60s, and it was like that crossover from when you were just a stay-at-home barefoot and pregnant mom to kind of being more of an empowered mom. And this was sort of empowering for her, and she really got into it. And then she started going to these, like back then, psychics weren't everywhere around. They were, everything was underground. So you had to really look. And she found this place. Mrs. Olson told her about this place. There was kind of like a church, but it really wasn't a church. It was a bunch of, beatniks hanging around in the basement someplace. And this leader of this group was a lady named Bertie, who was the scariest woman I've ever met. She's like this old sea hag, and she was psychic as hell, and she loved my mom. And so all these people that were trying to learn about psychic stuff started hanging out with her, and then they started coming to the house, and that's how I was raised, basically, that all these different psychics were at the house trying to learn about how to do it and what to do and what not to do. And that's just how I was raised. I didn't like it. It wasn't something I would have chosen at all. But and it got embarrassing after a while with my friends because they'd come home from school and they'd see a ghost in the kitchen, or they'd see a ghost sitting in a chair and they'd run out. Or sleepovers were a pain in the ass because you never knew what was going to happen. And
I know haunted houses and sleepovers the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, they do, and they always try to, and we'd always just brush it off. Like there was a tapping sound, like somebody was typewriting underneath the stairs, and so when my friends would go, who's tapping under the stairs? I'd always have to make up something. Or a couple of my friends, I would tell.
They might have thought it was really cool, though. They might have really liked it.
Yeah, it didn't. It was great for them, but their parents, we got a lot of calls from parents. We got people were very upset. A lot of kids weren't able to play with us because of the stuff that was happening, and so for me, it made my life kind of weird. It was I didn't like it, but I had this thing. I could tell stuff. I could tell things that. See, I thought it was all normal. I thought it was normal for people to have colors around it, but I guess it really wasn't. And I thought it was normal that you could tell when somebody was hurt or somebody was in pain, like my family member, I could tell if my sister, I could tell if she fell off a horse and she was in an ambulance, and I was like 4 at the time, but I thought everybody could do that. So all these psychics, they all had different manners of teaching or learning. And, some of them were downright scary. Some of them were like witchy, like if I had a problem with somebody at school, I'd come home and I'd complain, and one of them would get give me a lock of their hair, honey. I'll take care of it. That kind of thing. And then there was other people that were a lot, very spiritual and very careful about what they were doing. And then, there's all kinds of different psychics, like there's mediums and there's,
right. There's a lot of different areas. And it definitely seems like you had a very interesting childhood growing up. It was really,
and how does one get
an interesting place?
How does one get a lock of their hair?
Yeah, right.
You chasing another person, so just waiting for them to like duck or something, and
or just fingernails, something like that.
Right.
It was, and my mother would of course be like, no, don't even think about it, that kind of stuff.
What are you afraid of?
Hi, I'm Tim Wagner, Bram Stoker award-winning author.
# Grave Girls.
This is Katrina Weidman of Destination America's Paranormal Lockdown.
This is Jim Chambers. I'm the author of The Engines of Sacrifice.
This is Jasper Barr, award-winning author of The Final Cut.
And you're listening to What Are You Afraid of?
What Are You Afraid of?
To What Are You Afraid of?
What are you afraid of?
Love it. Fantoxic, please. Fantoxic.
Are you haunted by shadow people in the middle of the night?
Do you secretly love all things creepy and spooky, enjoying ghost stories and horror fiction from the best storytellers?
Do you have a true ghost experience you want to share, but no one will believe you?
If yes, listen to the professionals on What Are You Afraid of? Horror Paranormal Show Friday nights at 9 p.m. on Para X Radio and at www.whatareyouafraidofpodcast.com.
What are you afraid of on Para X?
Our creepy and demented hosts are on call to provide you with all your spooky needs with true ghost stories, interviews, indie music, and new horror fiction.
We are ready to scare you. Para X.
I'm Jenna Valadez with the Basement Files. Tune in Friday nights, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Para X Radio Network.
Another part of this thing was, back then there wasn't all these different assemblies. There wasn't all these different things, psychic things going on. They had psychic camps, and they were all hidden. They're like, you have to drive all forever in a night, and they were in the woods someplace, and they were all secret, because seriously, people considered psychics back then mentally ill, and there was people wouldn't talk about it. In fact, it was one of the traditions, like with my mom, we just didn't talk about it. We never would talk about it. But we'd go to these camps, and each camp would have kind of a different theme to it. Nature spirits, or reincarnation, or mediumship, or whatever, channeling, and or fairies and magic. They'd all have different themes, and I hated going to those places. But because I was the youngest, and my mom didn't want to go by herself, I would get dragged to these things, the only one time that I can remember, I went to a whole bunch of them, and they were all over the 5-state area. In fact, some of them were even longer or farther away. But the one thing that I remember, I had gone to a few of them, and my mom wouldn't tell me that we were going to psychic camp. She just was, hey, grab your toothbrush. We're going to go. And because she knew I wouldn't go, or I'd come up with some excuse. And
like taking a dog to the vet,
Right. Where's the dog? Yeah. And she, so she did that same thing. And at that time I had gotten beaten up and browbeaten, to just go along with it. So I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay. Where are we going to go? And she wanted to go someplace in Michigan. So it's going to be a longer drive than normal. And, we're driving, and we get there, and it's, like I say, it's in this wooded area. And this thing was all about, what the stuff that's out there that we don't know about. Mm-hmm. And, so there's things like, they talked about fairies, and they talked about, different weird stuff, which is kind of interesting at the time. I didn't really believe it. It was like, I didn't, because some of these people, you could tell them anything and they would just go with it. You know, you'd say, hey, there's a unicorn. They'd be like, where? You know, you couldn't, they were just so, they wanted to know about any of this stuff. You know, they wanted to believe anything. So I kind of just, don't step on, the leprechaun. And so I didn't always take it that seriously, but so she tells me right before I'm getting there, she goes, okay, I want you to be cool. Cause I tended to be a little hyper, but she said, I want you to be cool. We're going to meet some vampires. And I said, yeah, right. And she goes, no. So don't say anything. Don't do anything stupid. Just listen. Okay. And I'm like, yeah, right, Mom. Sure. I'll watch. And I didn't believe her at all. But we get there and there's this tent and there's a bunch of people, probably 50. It wasn't as packed as you might think. I mean, I suppose if they sold tickets, you could have got more people, but this was all word of mouth kind of thing. So they got this stage, and on the stage it's a family of 4. They have the father, mother, daughter, son. Okay, so the kids and the mother were sort of next to the dad, and the dad was doing all the talking. And you had to see these people because I've never seen anything like it. Their skin looked like those spring rolls that you get, that white translucent stuff. You can see this. Mm-hmm. You could see, their skin was like nothing I've ever seen before. Their eyes were like gone. The kids and the mom didn't say anything. They just sat and stared. But the dad, who was very deliberate in the way he talked when confidently, but there was something about the way he was talking was like, when she first told me we were going to go see vampires, I was like, yeah, whatever. But after looking at these guys for 5 minutes, I'm thinking, man, if they're not vampires, there's something seriously wrong with them, because these people, they look just like you'd think a vampire. I mean, they didn't have fangs or anything, but and their whole point of being there wasn't about, well, look at me, I'm a vampire. It was about that there's things out there that we don't even know about that happen all the time, and that we just get so busy in our daily lives that we don't even pay attention. But there's stuff out there, and
sounds like some True Blood type stuff there with the fairies and the vampires, and
it was scary as hell.
Stackhouse or something,
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Well, see, the fairy stuff was. They didn't have any. I didn't see a fairy. It's not, and they didn't have like a skeleton of a fairy or anything like that. They just talked about stories of when this fairy did this and did that. So I was like, yeah, that's a great story. But I didn't really necessarily believe them. I'd like to believe that there's fairies, and maybe there are. But these guys, I could see them, and they said that the dad said that he was like really old, like really old, like 400 years old, and and that they'd been around a long time, that they don't just always suck blood, that a lot of times they take your energy, but they're among us all the time. That they don't, it's not that they can't go out in daylight, it's just that it's really, really hard on their skin. But they have gone out. But the sun is really, really hard on them.
Of course,
but they didn't. They don't. It's not like they mind garlic or anything like that.
So
a lot of stuff that
are they like supernatural beings or?
I don't know.
Know
what? They didn't call themselves vampires. They called them necro something or other. I don't know what I was just like, my mouth was on the ground at that point, and I was looking for some sort of flaw, like some sort of joke, like, okay, this is a joke, or this is like they were putting on makeup or something. But the way that they walked, the way that they moved was different than everybody else. It's like they weren't in a hurry. They just, I don't know. I don't know. I was at probably about 11 or 12, and that was the most convinced of anything that I ever was, because of something like that.
Now, were they like actually physically there? Could other people see them, or?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, well that'd have been great if it was just me.
Yeah. No. Everyone saw.
Everybody saw him. Yeah, and everybody was very respectful. You got the sense that they could freaking eat your brains out if they wanted to. They had that sense, like they were holding back, but they were being respectful of us. But they looked at us like food, like we weren't that big of a deal.
Wow. So the garlic thing doesn't apply, and they technically can go out in sunlight, but it's hard on them.
It's hard for them, yeah.
Well, that's what they said, yeah. They prefer blood, but they have people that that live with them, that work with them, that provide that. That it's not like these random, I know, like these random, attacks and all that stuff. It's just, but that they've been around and they will continue to be around for many, many years.
Wow.
And
how about the age? How about the age factor, like the immortality? Is that still are they like really old?
Well, he said he was.
Well, he said he was 400 years old. He probably looked like he was 35.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So this is like really reminding me of like True Blood, because like how like no one believes in vampires in that universe, and then they all kind of come out.
Yeah, then they all come
out. And then when they
day,
come out, everyone realizes, oh, they were here all along, but we never knew it.
Yeah, I did a thing with Charlene Harris.
Yeah, I know you did. Yeah, the panel.
Yeah, the panel with Charlene Harris. That's pretty cool. But yeah. So no, I see what you're saying, Phil. So like one day tomorrow, there's going to be a press conference, like in front of in Transylvania.
Yeah.
We are here to stay. Vampirism is not a bad thing. It's an alternative lifestyle, and
Wow.
Right.
Why not?
Exactly. So that's pretty interesting.
Well, that is really interesting, and Bill's going to go crazy.
Yeah.
Bill keeps asking me, when are we going to have vampire stuff on? And we just did.
Yeah, I don't think we really had much vampire stuff on at all.
But the whole theme of that wasn't about the vampires. It was about that was one of many things that exist in this world that we just don't even think about or see, or we think it's not real, but it is.
Right, absolutely.
Like a lot of people who don't believe in psychic abilities.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't mean it doesn't exist,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I miss those times when I was that ignorant. I do. It was easy, it was simple, it was about the car you drove or the woman you were with or the job you had, it was that's how you were thought of. And
I'm sure it's sometimes it's a lot of pressure, and do you ever sometimes feel burdened by your abilities?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
See, the problem with me is that I feel things all the time. Like I can't go to the store without. I bumped into a kid today when I was at the store, and I got this whole vision of he's going to have a really good career in football, but his left knee was going to be blown out. I see an MRI about this thing. His knee is ruined, and how is it going to change his life? How is it going to alter his relationship? All this stuff. And I just bumped into the guy. I never said a word to him. But I feel stuff all the time. I'll sit and I can hear people thinking sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And it's like constant. And I'm kind of used to it, but still, when you're around people that suck, it's not so fun.
Right.
I get that. So we are talking to Michael Bodine and hearing some very interesting stories that I'm really enjoying too. Besides, on What Are You Afraid of? Horror and Paranormal show on Parax Radio on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and also on all major podcast services. And you can find more information out about Michael and our bevy of ghost stories and links and biographies and a link to his book over at our website at www.whatareyoufraidofpodcast.com. We'll be right back with Michael Bodine.
Mercy, a new horror medical thriller from author T. Fox Dunham, published by Bloodbound Books. Based on the author's horrific battle with a rare form of lymphoma that involved intense chemotherapy and radiation, Fox turns the horror of his experience into terror on the page.
William Saint is dying of cancer. On most days, death seems like a humane alternative to the treatment. Stricken with fever, William is rushed to Mercy, notorious as a place to send the sickest of the poor and uninsured to be forgotten, and finds the hospital in even worse condition than his previous visit.
Willie's memories faded. He grabbed his sack head of the scarecrow, picking at the exposed chicken wire to hold them in. However, the memories fell out of the holes in his face. They wormed and crawled from the leather flesh and the old clothing of the scarecrow, then squirmed and wiggled down his body.
The grounds are unkempt, the foundation is cracking, and like the wild mushrooms sprouting from the fissures of decay around it, something is growing inside the hospital. Something dark.
Fangoria gives Mercy 3.5 out of 4 skulls. Dunham has channeled his many brushes with the other side into the exquisitely rendered, lyrical, supernatural hospital thriller Mercy.
It's feeding on the sickness and sustaining itself on the staff, changing them, and now it wants Willie.
Come now, Mr. Saint. Just a little more of that sweet milk. So salty and so good. You won't miss it, and we ever do so like our delicacies here at Mercy Hospital.
Part medical horror, part supernatural suspense, Mercy is a hard-hitting fever dream of a novel. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Tim Wagner, author of The Way of All Flesh and Eat the Night. Available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and bookstores everywhere in both print and digital versions.
Life is an addiction.
Let go. Let it all burn.
All right, here we go. Quiet. Roll up.
Hello everyone, I'm Andrew Willis, the host of Movies Now and Then. We're a podcast that looks at one new release film in theaters, then we compare and contrast it with a classic or underappreciated film from cinema history. We're not a traditional movie show in that we try to have a more conversational approach to our discussion. We want our listeners to be informed, engaged, and hopefully even entertained. If this sounds like something you might enjoy, give us a listen. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, or anywhere podcasts are found by searching Movies Now and Then.
Heidi, what are you listening to? Heidi! Heidi! Oh, hey, Steph. Hey! What has your attention? Oh, I'm listening to Para X, the calling radio show. Have you ever heard of it? No, I haven't. What's it all about? Well, it's hosted by three guys, Jerry, Alan, and Will, and they talk about paranormal investigations, UFOs, cryptozoology, psychic phenomenon, all sorts of stuff. Oh, well, it's kind of like The Gathering, but on Wednesday, right? Yep, you got it. The Calling. The Calling. The Calling. The Calling. The Calling. The Calling radio show every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time only on Paranormal.
Well, we're back. Good. Yeah, we're back with Michael.
So we're back. We're back with Michael Bodine. And Michael, how do you help people with paranormal problems?
Well, that's a good question. People have questions from what kind of toothpaste should I wear to taste to what should I get a divorce? Is my spouse cheating? Will I make money? Am I going to die? There's a variety of different questions. What psychics are supposed to do, they're not supposed to answer all the questions. What they're supposed to do is they give you the sense that there is a power that you can tune into if you want to. They're supposed to help you with that. So they're supposed to answer some of your questions, but they're also supposed to help yourself answer questions, because people have intuition. They have their own spirit talks to them all the time. It's just that they don't necessarily trust it. So sometimes if you go to a psychic and they say the same thing that you were thinking, it's helpful. It's like you start to get a little confident. But that's really what psychics are basically water boys. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to give you a little boost. They're supposed to help you a little bit, but I think in the help is in giving that person confidence or giving them a sense that there is something out there. Like mediums are sort of like the, oh boy, how do I explain it? They're, people love mediums. They're flashy. They're dramatic. People love them. And, right. But their job isn't, it's a really basic job. Their whole job is to talk to your dead friends and dead relatives. And what that does is give you an idea of that maybe there's something else out there. And it's supposed to help open your eyes. Some mediums turn into divas and then it's all about them, but it's really not supposed to be about that. It's supposed to be about, look, there's spirits out there and you can tap into them and you can do all that. That's what a medium's supposed to do. A channeler, the old time channelers, those guys they would let spirit come into them and then they would literally change. Like I sat there in the kitchen one time and this guy, he was a channeler and I didn't know what a channeler was. But he said, I'm going to show you what a channeler is. And he was this normal looking guy. And all of a sudden his face starts to get really tight and it's like his eyes start to squint and his skin gets kind of a yellowish hue. He turns, I swear to God, he was turning like Asian right in front of us. And then he let this spirit in who was speaking. I don't know what he was speaking, but he wasn't speaking English. And then this person sat and did this for a little bit. And then that person left. And then the normal guy came back. he took a breath, and then all of a sudden another guy came in, and his hair had sort of a reddish tint to it. He got all these freckles. He was like this Irish guy. And those were the original channelers, where they would actually become the spirit. Nowadays, channelers are just like, it's overused word, if you ask me. It's just everybody's a channeler. But
right.
But all those things are supposed to be helpful in getting you to understand that there's power out there that you can tap into. It's not supposed to be about the psychic or the channeler or the medium. It's supposed to be about the message. Who cares? Who the psychic or who the psychic is. It's about what their message is, and so that's how they're supposed to be helpful.
Well, I like that a lot. Yeah. It doesn't matter who the psychic is. It's about the
no,
message.
It doesn't.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
In my book, I just wrote this other book. It's coming out in November. I have a chapter called "My Third Eye is Bigger Than Your Third Eye," and it's basically about how different psychics work and how they don't work. And really, it's honestly about the message. Because there was a time I was a kid. I was like 24. I was this hotshot psychic. I was talking to celebrities. I was the king. They were doing articles about me. I looked great. And I was on the radio, this radio station up here that was went to 5 states. And the guy, was asking me questions, and I'm like, of course, I'm just giving him answers in detail and all sorts of stuff. And then this guy comes in and wants a reading. One of the guys that worked there, one of the on-air personalities. I'm like, of course, I'll give you a reading, you idiot. I'm, Michael Bodine. He starts asking me questions. He goes, so tell me about my job. And I said, well, I don't know. Your job seems like they're not happy with you lately, buddy. They're blah, blah, blah. I'm going on this tangent. He goes, well, actually, I just got Employee of the Year. Well, okay, let's change the subject. How about my kids? And I said, well, okay, well, your boys, I think your boys are okay. They're and he interrupts me. He goes, no, I only have girls. And I said, okay, well, everything I said to this guy on air, all was wrong. Not only wrong, it was really wrong. It was like the guy was embarrassed because he was trying, he was almost giving me hand signal, like, no, you don't want to say that. And then I'd say it, and he'd go, no, that's not right. By the end of it, the guy whips out a 20 and goes, here, you're going to need this. And he was right. I got so thinking that I was the guy, and that they took away my stuff. I couldn't pick up anything on anybody. I had to go work at a warehouse for a year. I couldn't, and it was like their way of saying, look, dude, it's not about you. It's about what we're saying. And so since then, if somebody goes on and on about that I'm really good or I did something, it scares the crap out of me because it's not, sometimes I get lucky with people and it's helpful, but it's when you get the ego, and I don't know how some of these guys are doing it because some of these egos are, they have their own zip code. Some of these psychics out there. And I don't know how they're getting away with it because every psychic can suck. There's no such thing as a master psychic.
Right.
There's a lot of them. Some of them can be really good. I think the younger ones are enthusiastic like the newbies, but they don't know anything. They're just learning, And then your older psychics like me are just bitter. We're just yell at people. I think the people in the middle are better. I think they have a more understanding, but nobody's 100% accurate. That's not true. It's just not possible. And then they have these, best psychic of so-and-so. That's so stupid. That's like saying who's the best lover, It's all about chemistry. It's all about when you're working with the person. And I really believe in sharing psychics. Like sometimes I suck and I need somebody else's perspective. And so it's helpful to have other psychics to talk to. But a lot of psychics don't believe in that. They get really territorial about it.
You said they, when you were talking about losing your ability and having to go work in a warehouse, they didn't like that. Now, as a shaman, I believe in spirit guides, and I believe assistance coming from the other side from various sources. Who are they?
Okay, so and another chapter in my book is called "Don't Squeeze the Shaman." They are, in my opinion, everybody has spirit guides around them, and there's sort of those are the ones that kind of decide or dictate. Like when I do readings for people, I try to connect with those things, with those spirit guides. And sometimes they got stuff to say and sometimes they don't. But they're the ones that kind of give me the information on somebody if they want it, And not everybody needs a reading either. Some people just think, oh, I want a reading. Well, they don't always need one. And so sometimes they won't say anything to me. But those are the ones that have shut me off. And I'm a future kind of guy, you know, like there's some people that are past life kind of people. I could care less. And some people are about, you know, finding stuff, and I can't find my keys. I'm a future guy. Like I'm interested in what's coming up and the opportunities and all that kind of stuff. And so sometimes probably 8 out of 10 people that call me, I can't do, because I can tell right away whether they're going to take the opportunities or not. Because, you know, people have reasons for not doing stuff. There's always opportunities coming for people, but a lot of times people just don't take them because they're either afraid, they don't think they deserve it. You know, there's a whole bunch of dynamics that get into it. But for that reason, that's why I do mostly celebrities, not because they're great people, because they're not. It's because they're, because I know that most of them are a little narcissistic, and most of them, if there is an opportunity coming up, they're going to take it, because if they don't, man, they're going to die. You know, they got to take it. So I think for me, that's why I do more people in the entertainment field. But again, not because it makes me a better psychic or anything like that. It really doesn't. It just, for what I do, for the future stuff, it works out.
It said Melanie Griffith. It said Gary Busey. By the way, I want to know what Gary Busey's like.
Oh, you'd love. I haven't talked to Gary for a little while. He's more of a family friend now, and Melanie, same thing. You know, I got to update these things. Jeez, I think that was written a while ago. But yeah, I do. You know how it works is it's a really small community out there, and everybody knows everybody, and so there's like the psychic of the month. You know, they all want to go to the different person and this and that. So, you know, I get tossed around. Sometimes I work with people for a long period of time, you know, like I'll be on retainer with them for a few months, depending on what they're going through, like if they're going through a job or a heavy divorce or whatever. And that's pretty much, and, you know, the questions really vary to whether they are, you know, going to work with their co-stars, or whether they're going to like the director, or, you know, and a lot of times it's people that are having relationships in the movie or television that they're doing. They're actually having those relationships in real life. And then when the wrap party comes, it usually ends, but sometimes it doesn't. And then it gets, you know, complicated. So it's mostly stuff like that, you know, not deep stuff.
I actually met Gary Busey about 5 years ago.
Did you?
Too, yeah.
Oh my God,
I had a pretty good conversation with him, and yeah, he's definitely an interesting person. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the guy. I mean, you know, he's really sweet, but he can be scary, you know, because I've been around him, and he just goes off on people.
Yeah, I have an interesting story, actually, very, very brief. He was in the hotel lobby, and he was staying there, and he comes down, and this is already after I met him. I met him earlier that day. He was staying there, and he comes down, and something was wrong in his hotel room, and he was in his bathrobe and slippers, and he was freaking out the receptionist behind the desk. And I was standing about 4 feet from him while he's like going, I don't even know. He was saying that something in the room, or he was really going off, and it's something. But it was, yeah. He stood there for maybe like 10 minutes, and then he stormed off, went back on the elevator. So I still don't know what that was all about, but you know.
It could have been about anything. I mean, poor guy. He gets nutty. Yeah.
I can accept that. You know.
I remember he liked my shirt. I had always some darkness shirt on with a vampire woman on the front.
Oh, that was your movie, right?
He loved, he loved
movie.
the shirt. Yeah, right. He loved my shirt. Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah,
well, it's interesting to touch on these worlds.
Yeah,
like we talked about vampires, we've talked about psychics, we've talked about spirit guides, and Gary Busey.
Right. Gary Busey fits in there very well.
Caliburn Press, LLC is a Madison, Wisconsin-based publishing company owned and operated by Alan Ledden. Caliburn works with talented writers, artists, editors, and marketers throughout the United States, and you can find their books through their many imprints that include Damnation Books, Eternal Press, Malaferia Press, Ciento Sordida Publishing, and Spiro Publishing. Please visit their website at sites.google.com/site/Caliburn Press LLC/home, or Google Caliburn Press to check out their growing list of titles on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and any other place fine books are sold.
worms crawl out, they crawl all over your dirty snout, your chest. My name is David Walton. I am a vocal performer for What Are You Afraid Of? Horror and Paranormal show. And I have carried the burden of a terrible secret. I am actually what is offensively called a ghost. For years now I have concealed my ectoplasmic existence from my friends and family, in fear of a common prejudice against ghosts, or what we like to call the disembodied. I have existed frightened of being discovered, unable to do physical acts that the embodied take for granted, such as walking a squirrel, or drinking a glass of vitamin E milk fresh squeezed from a whale. I grew depressed and even considered acts of self-harm or reincarnation, which is suicide for the disembodied. Such movies as Ghostbusters and its sequels drove my feelings of disenfranchisement, and I began looking for help, only to encounter painful exorcisms in the houses I haunted. Then I met two good people, it says here, Fox and Phil, at What Are You Afraid Of? Horror and Paranormal. And they helped me take control of my own life. Now, it is my choice whether I wish to make phantom bounds in the night, appear at the foot of your bed in darkness, or make your walls bleed. If you are a disembodied person like I am, and you're living a lie, What Are You Afraid Of? Can help you too. They are on at 9 p.m. on Friday nights at Para-X Radio, leaving plenty of time for midnight haunting activities, and can be found on all major podcast services. Listen to their paranormal stories, interviews, humorous sketches and horror fiction to know that you are not alone. And if you are a member of the embodied, don't forget, you are only a single heart attack or tumour away from becoming one of us. This is David Walton. See you on the other side. Or as I call it, this side. And that is the end of a perfect day.
Your source for everything paranormal, Para-X.
So, you started ghost hunting.
Oh my God. Well, I started ghost busting when I was a kid. It was part of my initiation, because like I said, I didn't want to do this stuff at all. Mm-hmm. But my teachers were like, dude, you're scared of ghosts, so you need to get over that fear. And I'm like, no, that's child abuse. And so we had these long, drawn out discussions about it. Finally, I had to do my first ghost busting when I was, I think I was 10. Mm-hmm. Our house was filled with ghosts. It was like, why go out and do what's already happening at the house? But yeah, and it was scary as hell. It was scary.
What was your scariest paranormal encounter? What still scares you when you think about it to this day?
Well, that's a good question. The scariest I've been was because I knew the least. So when the scariest time was when I was a kid and I didn't know what the hell we were doing, and I didn't know if we were going to make it out alive because things were flying and floating around. But now I've been in worse situations where the floor is bleeding, the walls are bleeding, things are being thrown, and it doesn't scare me at all because I know what to do and I know who they are. So it's not, it's different. I guess the scariest time for me was when I was a kid, and they just some horrendous, God, well, it's a long story. And well, possessions tend to be a little more scary just because they're physical. The people are shaking, they're throwing up, they're coming at you, they're spitting on you, they're doing all sorts of things. So it's a little more physical when you deal with a possessed person. And their vibe is just creepy, they have those black eyes and they're, it's just not as cheery as, say, like a regular ghost busting.
Can you tell us about your book, Growing Up Psychic, From Psychic to Believer? Just give us a brief.
Sure.
Cool.
Yes. My psychic book, that first book is really just about, like I said, I never really cared about this stuff very much. I never would have chosen it for my occupation. Nobody ever says, "Hey, do you want to be a psychic at the job fair?" It's not something that
we're hiring.
Yeah. The dental's terrible. There's no Christmas party. It's just not fun. And so it's not something I would have chosen. But sometimes things just kind of get thrown on you.
I hear the 401k is stellar.
Oh, yeah. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Money sucks in this job. I mean, it does. Because the whole thing about money is you're not supposed to, you can't make it about money, but how can you not take it about, and people, it's a whole thing. But okay, so the book is just basically about, it's a humorous look at growing up with psychics and people that are really into it, the kumbayas and the people that are just, they're on journeys, those people. And the way that I look at it, it's just, I have a different way of looking at it. Not worse or better, just, it's not, my sister Echo, I have another sister, Nikki, that they're both into it. My sister Nikki's a really good medium, like really good. And Echo's, written about 400 books already. And, they're into it. And my mother was really a good psychic. Like she was scary, good, kind of good. So, it's a family thing. I've tried to do other things, I've tried to, I went to chef school, but every time I make a dish, I could hear the people thinking about it. Or, I've tried all sorts of stuff, counseling, or I could tell when people were lying, or I could, I stand-up comedy once, and I got up on stage, and all I could see were the people in front, and they were talking about this guy wanted to have sex with this girl, but this girl was mad at that guy for, all this stuff, and it was like so distracting. I wanted to tell everybody to shut up. They weren't saying anything. In fact, it was crickets when I was up there.
I want to leave you with one last question. What is the afterlife like?
Oh my God. It's like Denny on a Thursday night. No, from what they say, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty, I have a hard time with that because, okay, so they say that once you die, a lot of times people come back, or they learn different lessons, and they go to different places. Like there's a thought that maybe this isn't the only planet, and that maybe there's other stuff going on, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And so they say that the afterlife isn't exactly just sitting in a cloud. It's like getting prepared or helping you get ready for the next thing. It's all about evolving, all about turning more spiritual. And all. They say that Earth is like a lower form planet, like the Dum planet, like Dum School, like when you get the DWI, you have to go there. That's what this place is like.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Oh, God, DWIs.
I don't feel so bad anymore.
Oh man.
It's actually kind of comforting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, the basic lessons we learn here, some of them are just ridiculous. And the way that we are with each other. Yeah. So that they say that this planet is all about learning emotion. So some of us have gotten away from emotion, and we've, gotten too intellectual or whatever. And so that's what the whole purpose of being here is. But then you go and you pass, and then you learn, you get debriefed, and then you go to your next little whatever,
Wow. Thank you for talking to us on episode 96, Growing Up Psychic. That was great. I really enjoyed that one. And we're definitely having the guy back.
We are. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, episode 96.
96.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
It's been a great episode, Phil.
Wonderful episode. I'm Phil.
I'm Fox.
Have you noticed vampires getting far too much love, to the detriment of other groups of undead? Those elitist bastards skulking in their castles, sleeping in their velvet cushioned coffins, shunning daylight in the mansions like they had something to hide. Vampires suck, they're so not cool. but zombies rule. You might think they're both just living corpses, but that's not quite true. In fact, there is a crucial difference. Zombies have great numbers, but vampires are few. Zombies are many, vampires are few. Zombies are many, vampires are few. When the zombies rise up, all the vampires can do is to flee to distant mountains where the mummies are hiding too.
It's like Denny on a Thursday night. No, you know,
T. Fox Dunham lives in Philadelphia with his wife Allison. He's a lymphoma survivor, cancer patient, modern bard, and historian. His first book, The Street Martyr, was published by Gutter Books. A major motion picture based on the book is being produced by Throughline Films. Destroying the Tangible Illusion of Reality or Searching for Andy Kaufman, a book about what it's like to be dying of cancer, was recently released from Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing, and Fox has a story in the next Stargate anthology from MGM and Fandemonium Books, Points of Origin. Fox is an active member of the Horror Writers Association, and he's had published hundreds of short stories and articles. His motto is Wrecking Civilization, one story at a time.
Phil Thomas is an author and screenwriter from the suburbs of Philadelphia. His screenplays have been produced into feature films False Face and Always from Darkness, and are available in major retailers such as Best Buy and Target, as well as availability on Netflix and Amazon On Demand. His short films can be viewed on his YouTube channel, Film Zero Presents. He is a member of the International Association of Professional Writers and Editors, and he currently writes for Cultured Vultures, Game Skinny, and BloodyDisgusting.com. His first novel, The Poe Predicament, is being published in 2018 by Caliburn Press.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.